that's where the reputation is permanently from, is the A1.
Correct. And I'm so glad you said that because to this day, the current manuals tell you to do things with this rifle that you haven't had to do since pre-Gulf War.
Yeah,
Um,
the functions, I mean, simple as, like, the little karate chop to the charging handle is
exactly.
crazy, but
That is exactly an A1 issue, and that was due to weak springs and warping receivers and guide rails. That's
yep.
exactly it.
You're listening to the Art and More podcast with your hosts, Nathan and BR. Nathan is a Canadian illustrator with a couple years of military experience, and BR is a British anarchist that moved to the States. Both are passionate shooters and community builders. Together, they run the Seaburn Art page. Enjoy the show.
Alright, guys, welcome back to the Art and War podcast. I'm BR, I'm hosting solo today, and I'm here with Evan Murdoch, owner and runner of Murdoch and Co. So, Evan is a fellow Brit who has since moved to the States with a major interest in firearms, firearms manufacturing, firearms remanufacturing, which I'm sure we'll get into that term itself. But Evan has brought to life a project that has really captivated me in particular. It is Brit centric, focusing on remanufacturing the SA80 incredibly faithfully. And, well, apart from the fact that I assume it's going to run as intended. So that'll probably be a little different from a little non clone correct. But we're gonna we're gonna get into all of that. Discuss what Murdoch and Co is all about. What made Evan pursue this project, and the many intricacies of what it takes to do a project like this. So, Evan, thank you for joining us. Really excited to get on with this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. First thing I'd like to say is that it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So,
No, appreciate it. It's this is one of those things, like, since it was a possibility to own an SA80, and I mentioned it in any form, like whether it's, like a dress up kit or like a full fledged remanufacturer of the SA80. People have been like in my DMs harassing me, like, have you got an SA80 yet? Blah, blah, blah. Because it's one of those things, like, as a Brit, and we'll get into this much deeper further on.
mhm.
But it was just never a possibility to obviously own one in the UK, and having moved, like, basically exactly the same likelihood of owning one in the States. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. It's not a gun that's out there. It's not like an AUG, which was readily available on the civilian side when you move to the States. It's just completely out of bounds unless you do cadet or full British military service. So, super interesting what you're doing with the EM85. We'll get into all of that. But
Absolutely.
first off, could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? Kind of what makes a Brit get into this? What brings a Brit to the US? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so as you alluded to before, the only way to get your hands on a genuine article of any British military firearm is pretty much you've got to be in the British military, especially after the L1A1 rifle. So anything modern. So myself, I grew up in a small country town called Chepstow. It's about 2 hours northwest of London, and I grew up around history, surrounded by it, as you do in the UK. We had a castle in my hometown, the oldest one in Wales. Our church was over 900 years old. We had a Roman barracks down the road. We had World War II bunkers in the countryside. And right in the town, we had the first Welsh Rifles out of Beachley Barracks. Um, and that, being surrounded by that amount of history, especially all the military stuff, combined with I went to countless air shows when I was a kid, museums, um, made models with my granddad at the kitchen table. So I've always been surrounded and really inspired by history. All that British heritage, that's something that America kind of misses.
Yep.
You just simply don't have that here, and it's very hard to
Well,
explain.
they're very proud of things that are 200 years old, and you're like, buddy, that bus stop is 200 years old.
Quite literally, in some cases. I mean, you genuinely will have. If you walk around London, I always urge people to look at the post boxes and
Yep.
then the barricades to keep vehicles out of pedestrian walkways, because those are actually upturned cannons from naval warships when they were decommissioned. Um, 300, 400 years ago.
Yep.
So yeah, you're just surrounded by history there. And in terms of firearms, spent a lot of my childhood at Imperial War Museum, Duxford, which I urge anyone to go to. The biggest collection of flying aircraft in the UK, historical, um, and they have a beautiful land warfare expedition.
Yep. So many cool tanks.
Hmm. Oh yeah, they got Tiger tanks, everything, Cold War, World War One, you name it. So yeah, growing up around all that, it's quite obvious why the military was a natural draw, like any young man. So went on to join the cadet force, like again, a lot of people in England do. And the cadet force, a lot of people cringe when I say that. The UK and European cadet forces are very much different to what you have here in America. Here, it's kind of just Boy Scouts and daycare.
Yep.
In Europe, it is a military organization. It's funded by the Ministry of Defense. Um, at 13 years old, they hand you a semi-automatic SA80.
Yeah, you're doing
The
section
L9.
attacks in the woods.
You do, yeah. I mean, we went on helicopters. We did night stuff. I mean, it really was. You know, it was in all intents and purposes soldiering, because the idea it was kind of a blister from the Cold War. They needed kids ready to deploy at the age of 18, whereas here you start the training at 18.
Yep.
So that's kind of where the cadet idea comes from. So that's where I shot my first proper rifle, the Lee Enfield, and then the L98 A2 and the L85 A2. So the L98, we'll get into British nomenclature and naming conventions, but the L98 A2 is a semi-auto cadet version, full-sized, and then the L85 A2 is the military full automatic variant. So yeah, started that. Had a fantastic time in the cadets. That's really where it all started. And then outside of the cadet force, we can talk more about the cultural aspects in England, but you're really not getting your hands on firearms
No.
unless you own land. It's just it's simply not happening.
Yeah.
Um,
The only reason I was a shooter growing up was I kind of the opposite direction of London from you. I'm East Anglian,
mhm.
so but same thing, 2 hours outside of London, out in the countryside. And the only reason I had access to firearms was my dad was taking care of, like, basically what Brits refer to as vermin control, but what anyone here
Mhm.
would refer to as deer hunting. Like,
Right,
you have
right,
farmers who they're pests to them, and then you get access to ridiculous acreage just by being
correct.
handy with a rifle and having a firearms license, and
Hmm.
ticking your boxes and doing all of that stuff. You have a reason to own a rifle, so you may have one particular caliber as long as it's not too similar to the other calibers. Blah blah blah. So yeah, outside of
Correct.
the
Hmm.
cadet forces, it's either like join some hoity-toity pistol like competition club, which is actually quite difficult to get into.
Oh yeah, no,
Um,
no semi-auto pistols in the UK.
oh lord, yeah. The have you seen? I mean, I'm sure you have the sticks they weld to the bottom of pistols.
I have not, but I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if I saw one.
Oh, it gets silly, but anyway, all that to say, yeah, most people are not handling firearms at all, and even less are handling semi-auto fire. Like, very few are handling semi-auto firearms outside of military service of some description.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So you have, but I believe 5 sections is the classification, and the simplest way to put it for the American viewer to understand is a firearms license in the UK is the exact same stringency, if not more difficult, as an FFL. So
Yeah,
when you apply for a firearms license, it's literally a physical piece of paper that you need to carry around, and it has a chart on it, and it says you can get this gun, this amount of ammunition, this caliber, this type, and then the police sign off on it. Um, so that is the level of restrictions we're talking about. So.
yeah. So, real quick question.
Mhm.
You, like, growing up doing the cadet thing, did you have any urge to own firearms at that point? Because I grew up in a
Ooh,
household that had access and owned firearms, so I never
mhm.
like saw the disconnect. It was never like a lofty thing to me or something that was
Right.
inaccessible. It was just something we did, and then I realized it was quite odd as I got older and would excitedly like teach friends gun safety. I'm like, oh, this isn't a normal thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the immediate answer is yes, of course.
Yeah.
But looking back, I don't. You wanna know what it was? It was when you have access to them in the UK through the military or the cadet force or whatever it is, because you quite literally, like, even in the cadets, you go to an armory, you sign out a serial
Yep.
number, and it's, you have free reign access, sleep with it, all that lovely stuff. When you have access to them, it's as you say, you don't realize. But then as soon as I, got out of the cadet force, I was like, okay, I miss it. And
Yep.
that was like, okay, now I want to have access to them. Um, so
So what was that trend like? Obviously you did the cadet force
Mm.
thing, and then decided not to go into the forces, right?
so I decided to go into the forces.
Oh, okay.
Not in the UK. So I moved here to the US. So in England, you graduate at 16. Give you a very brief rundown. I then moved to the US, and I was told I had to go back to school, which wasn't, because you
Crazy.
guys graduate because you guys graduate at 18, and in England you graduate at 16, do the
Yes.
GCSEs.
Yep.
So, and then from that point, it was, that was basically my personality. It was just, okay, train as hard as I can. Join the Marine Corps. My mum's side of the family's American, and
Gotcha.
then my uncle was a Marine officer. So hearing all of his stories growing up, I was like, yeah, I want to join the Marine Corps. It's a no brainer.
Hell yeah.
And if not, I had applications to go. I began the process to go to Sandhurst in the UK because we weren't sure if we were going to move over. Yeah, when right out of high school, 17 years old, my dad went to the U.S. Embassy to notarize my early enlistment papers for the Marine Corps because he was in Britain at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, joined the Marine Corps. That very sadly came to an early close. Last week of basic, I blew my knee out completely.
Oh,
ACL, PCL, meniscus, you name it, and it was just, heartbreaking because that was all I knew.
yeah,
Well, I will say it wasn't heartbreaking. What's heartbreaking was leaving all the guys behind. That
yeah.
always is what sucks. Um, but yeah, even though that happened, I left the Marine Corps, and that love for firearms and training will never leave you. So I embraced it, and that's where all my passions come from today. So
Gotcha. And
mhm.
so, you obviously in your bio you mentioned becoming a airline pilot. So like, what
Mhm.
kind of obviously that's quite a skill set to get into. It's not like just picking up woodworking or something.
Yeah, from grunt work to cockpit management.
Yeah,
So yeah, I don't talk about the flying stuff much.
we don't have to hit
So
on it too much, but
yeah, no. So I always wanted to be a pilot. That was always my dream. My plan was join the military, um, serve my country, and then use that money to become a pilot. I sucked at school. I have no college education, so the Air Force wasn't an option. But when I got out of the Marine Corps, injured. Now I'm like, what do I do with my life? I was like, well, you know what? Um, Something happened that wasn't my fault. I really enjoyed it. There's no reason why I can't accomplish becoming a pilot. So I got two jobs, paid myself through flight training, and then through some amazing mentors. I did everything from I flew cargo in Hawaii with low hours, and I came back and I was a SIC, so second in command on some pretty serious turbine aircraft. And then I was a captain, flew charter, think rich, famous, everyone from, you know, probably names I can't say, but names you would all know, from politics to Hollywood. So, and now I fly a beautiful jet for a family, is my full time job.
that's
And
badass.
yeah, the only summary from that would be, you could be bad at school, but if it's your dream and your passion, just go out and do it because I was the guy that failed almost every class in England, and now I get to fly a $60 million jet around the world. So
That is that's awesome. I mean, if you have no other takeaway from this episode, like fantastic. But we do have a lot to get into.
we
So,
do. We
so
digress.
yes. So where how did Murdoch and Co come to be while presumably like doing the airline thing or pilot thing rather?
Yeah. So um, again, always passionate about firearms.
Yeah.
Always love the engineering side. So a lot of being a pilot is actually being an engineer. Because what you do, especially in a modern aircraft, is you're a manager of systems.
Yeah.
So, and we often say as a pilot, we get paid for when stuff goes wrong. Most of the time, we're just managing the system, controlling the aircraft.
Yeah.
But what we're really getting paid for is our knowledge of when stuff goes wrong. And when you have 3 seconds to figure out where the problem in the system is and which circuit breaker to hit, that's when you have to be near a functional engineer, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Of every different system in the aircraft. So with that came very naturally for me. I've always enjoyed building stuff. Again, going back to the model kits with my granddad as a kid. And I've always loved engineering. I've always loved creating things. So when you pair that with a passion for firearms, I think it's a very natural direction that if you can't get it, build it, quite simply. So and then with my job as a pilot, that allows me to have quite a bit of free time. So with that free time, I've decided to pursue a passion of mine and many other people out there and bring something very special to life.
That's awesome. And what a unique set of circumstances. Like obviously like the upbringing like created the interest, and then
Yeah.
the pilot career with the move being
Mhm.
a dual citizen, and then the pilot career opening up that opportunity. Hey guys, we're taking a quick break to talk about staying sharp and protected in any temperature extreme with our newest supporter of the show, Core Performance, the experts in thermoregulation gear. Core Performance provide cooling, heating, and hydration solutions that seamlessly integrate with your kit, whether you're rocking a plate carrier, chest rig, heavy pack, or just hitting the trail for a hike or run. Their ice plate and ice flask are game changers. Wearable water bottles you fill with drinkable water, freeze overnight for cooling, or fill with warm water for heating. These are worn against your back or on your flanks and keep you cool during intense range sessions, competition shooting, or field work, protecting against heat exhaustion. Or, alternatively, keeping you warm when static in the freezing cold, guarding against hypothermia. As it melts, you stay refreshed with ice-cold drinking water, or provides you with warm water in the extreme cold. Even without the thermal benefits, Ice Plate and Ice Flask are rugged hydration solutions built for those, like myself, who have popped soft bladders. They take the water you're already carrying and give it dual purpose to help you overcome extreme temperatures and stay effective when others are focused on survival. I've been using Core Performance since 2022 to conquer Arizona's heat and train year-round in the Southwest. I've been a fanboy for a long time. Nathan and Phil also rock this stuff. I think Core's equipment is seriously differential from most offerings in the gear world, and now they're supporting the show. Aside from Ice Plate and Ice Flask, they also make an excellent ultralight hydrophobic plate carrier, which I run, the Ice Plate Exo Gen 3, and have ventilated padding called Ice Vents, which don't trap heat and sweat like legacy foam padding. Check out coreperformance.com and use code ARTandWar10 for 10% off. Every purchase with our code supports the show. Links are in the description and are link free. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the show. So, yeah, you mentioned Murdoch and Co. was founded in 2024, but the work began back in 2018. So can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So Murdoch and Co., as you said, officially was founded in 2024. I would argue it started even earlier, back again with just living around history as a kid, because all that inspiration, all those things, is where we take inspiration from, and ultimately is where our mission comes from. So back in 2018 was really the year that I decided that I wanted an SA80, an L85 rifle. So that was when I started either collecting parts, collecting knowledge, all that sort. Looking if had there been ones made in the past, who's done this before, all that sort of thing. Educating myself about the SA80. So yeah, I would say 2018 was where I made the conscious decision of, yeah, I want one of these. They don't exist. I went as far as to email a few MPs and the MOD to find out if there would ever be parts kits available. And there won't be, which we can get into. But yeah, 2018 was really that benchmark of where this project really began, and then everything since then has been built upon one another for Murdoch and Co. So, to tell you about Murdoch and Co., we are not a normal firearms company. Murdoch and Co. is very much, I want to bring, and is bringing, that British craftsmanship and European craftsmanship of old that I think people are just hungry for now. We have the PSAs, we have the consumerism products, you have your $800 AR-15. But I think in a way people are getting tired, especially I think their safes are getting full of guns that are mass produced, emotionless, laser engraved serial numbers. And growing up around all the British history, all the craftsmanship, honestly, looking at our modern world and seeing that care and craftsmanship and heritage is dying in products. I'm a big believer in, as we said before, if you want something, just go out and get it, and if it doesn't exist, build it.
Yep.
And I looked around and I saw no companies, um, especially ones taking their heritage from England and bringing it to life. And that goes, we go into that, but I had a lovely conversation with Jonathan Ferguson at the Armories a few weeks ago, and he said that in many ways the UK culture now and the laws have just stifled home, uh, you know, British gun production and design,
Yep.
which we can get into a bit later, but that's one of the other reasons why it has to be here, and if it has to be here, it means that we have to bring it here because nobody else is, and when I think of Murdoch and Co, I think about everything from a beautiful Spitfire to a steam engine to those Enfield designers and all of the best of British engineering, bringing that here in its just rawest, purest form for people to enjoy. And in many ways, as cheesy as this might sound, I really do believe in it, at least personally. Um, that I just want to save that little bit of England that I think we're losing, and that little bit of the world that I think people want back in a way. Um, so that at its core is what the mission of Murdoch and Co is. You could argue it's not even firearm centric. We could make a cigarette case or something, or a wallet or any other item, and if you apply that philosophy, um, that's that story behind that object, is that's why it's different, that's why what we're doing is different. And we'll get into why and how we're doing that, but in a nutshell, yeah, Murdoch and Co was founded on is the principle of bringing that British heritage and that European heritage of old to the modern day for us to enjoy.
No, I love that, and it's something that when people ask me what I miss about England, I I'm like, man, there's a lot of things I moved to get away from, but there's a lot of
Hmm.
things that I do miss. And there's those uniquely British experiences, like you walk past a church in your village, and
Hmm.
it was made in like 1200.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that would blow the mind of most
Oh yeah.
Americans, but it's like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, dude, like that's the church that the local primary school kids like still go to as like
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
part of their Christmas services and all that. Or
Yeah.
like a cobbled street
Hmm.
that has existed for 600 years and is was
Correct.
built on top of Roman roads,
Right.
that
Yeah.
your favorite pubs down, and little things like that, unique things that, for all of England's faults, there are like some very unique experiences that just will never be replicated over here nearly as faithfully. And it's funny, like something something like the SA80, which is about at the tail end of, and
It is.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's
A bit beyond that, if I got to say, but
yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing was, it was first serviced in 1987. So at that point, Britain, like, it post 47 years, post war,
hmm.
like we kind of lost a lot of that stuff. We kind of after we were like bombed to pieces, we
Hmm.
rebuilt with like prefabs and soullessness, and a,
Correct. Yeah.
a lot was lost and has continued to be lost. So
Hmm.
it's something that I really never get to talk about because Americans don't want to hear it for the most part. Like they don't want to hear that Brits have culture, or that there is something worth retaining from all of that,
Hmm.
because it's honestly like very disrespected, and honestly like a lot of Brits have disrespected it for a long time, to the point that it's just kind of like there's very few left to kind of protect what is left. So no, I really love that kind of that mission statement and that mindset.
One note I'd like to say on the prior
Oh
conversation,
yeah.
just to bring what we're saying full circle for Americans who maybe have not been to England. is part of Murdoch and Co.'s mission is every employee or anyone involved with the project has to come to England, because you have to walk through a medieval church. You have to, you know, smell the steam of a vintage steam engine in the 1940s. Um, Railway. You have to come to the Purdy House in London, those famous shotguns. You have to go to the Imperial War Museum, and you have to experience it. And we recently took a very good friend of mine, and there was a moment when we walked into a cathedral in York, and when you're walking to those places, you're stepping on oftentimes on the graves of crusaders, which isn't a disrespectful thing. They purposely bury them there so they can be respected and add to the history. It's a rightful place to bury them. So he walked in, and there was a choir singing, and there was no speakers, and it was just the pure resonance and sound of the cathedral. And when we walked out, he said, "I get it now." Um,
That's awesome.
so as cliche as this all might sound, it very much is real, and I encourage anyone to go to England and experience it. And if they can't, that is exactly why we made Murdoch and Co. And we can talk about our plans for the company in the future. It's very much something that you have to experience yourself, and I urge anyone to visit England. And if they can't, that's why we're making Murdoch and Co. Is because we are bringing all those feelings and emotions, and or quite honestly, as many artifacts as we can, which we'll get into the future of and what we have planned for the company and what's coming up. Um, but as you say, it's very much more than just designing a firearm to be perfect and beautiful. It's a sign of all those things, and somewhere that, as I said, we're bringing that part of England and Europe over to have a home in this company, and for those who want to experience that, uh, to fully enjoy it.
So it's kind of something that I was starting to touch on is like I think it's really cool to bring British craftsmanship to something that I would argue like it really didn't receive too much British craftsmanship. The
Hmm.
SA80 is very much a British rifle, but and you know much more about the platform than me. Um I feel like like I said, it was at kind of the tail end of
Hmm.
Brits having that pride in craftsmanship, and especially in gun making.
I
Like,
don't know if I'd call it that.
yeah,
Easy
yeah.
on, lad. Easy on.
But I don't know. What can you kind of say about the SA80 itself, like its history, and what makes the remanufacture different?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to start would be understanding the SA80, what it is exactly. As you say, your listener's view of it is probably from some very vague stuff online in the internet. So I'd like if you would give me the pleasure to just give a correct brief history of that firearm, its lineage, and where it stands today.
Absolutely.
All right, so grab your cup of tea or coffee. um, so the best place to start would be the name. So SA80, there's a lot of confusion, and games haven't helped with this naming
Okay.
convention. So SA80 stands for Small Arms of the 1980s. It is a family of firearm. So when we wrote our manual for the EM85, we referred to the original rifle as the SA80, and then if there were similarities with the EM85, we would refer to the exact model, which is the L designation. And for those who don't know, the reason why there's an L in everything British is it's almost like the stock keeping unit for the quartermaster. The L is just their pre-designator, if you will. So what it is it's commonly the number essentially on the spreadsheet of the item. So that's where those names come from, those L names. Usually they'll package them up and they'll be similar. L85, L96, L86, all that sort of thing. But so SA80 is the family, and then you get into your L designations. So the L85A1, which was introduced in 1985, that is commonly referred to as the SA80. So those seem to be interchanged in the communities. SA80 is an A1, and then when people refer to the A2, the SA80 A2, they don't seem to refer to it as an SA80, even though technically it is.
Yep.
So you have, I'll run through the models. You have the A1, the A2, and now the A3. And then submodels, you have the light machine gun version, the LSW or the L86. And then you have the carbine version, the L22A2. There was no A1 variant officially adopted beyond trials and testing. You have the cadet version, the L98, A1 and A2. What else? And then you have modifications such as 2.2s, laser training units, just kind of modifications to the rifle. But those are your big models of L designation rifles. So hopefully that clears some stuff up in terms of the name. So when we go forward and we talk about those things, that's what we're referring to. So the SA80 story begins just after World War II. I would argue even before. So exiting the war, Britain understands that they need a intermediate cartridge. The 303 round is too big, and the studies found that a lot of the engagements were happening 300 meters and within. It was essentially intermediate cartridge. Later, you have the 4.85 cartridge. But the idea is that more ammunition is more useful. Bigger battle cartridge isn't so.
You hear that,
So,
Sig? I said, you hear that, Sig?
yeah. Well, that's just a repeat of history, isn't it?
Yep.
We won't get into that.
That's not.
Yeah, M14 has entered the conversation. So the EM2 program is Britain's first bullpup. It is, think an Enfield, but intermediate, a Enfield bolt action rifle, intermediate cartridge, semi-automatic bullpup. That's essentially what the EM82 is. Some experts might debate me on that, but for ease of conversation and understanding and visuals, that's what it is. It's a wooden stocked, made on milling machines and lathes. It's made with the processes of an Enfield rifle, but in a semi-automatic intermediate cartridge. I've had the privilege to handle those rifles at the Royal Armories. The EM2 was phenomenal. It is way ahead of its time. It had an optical sight. It had backup sights. It is lightweight. It is small. It is everything you want a rifle to be. The EM2 was really praised as a fantastic rifle, and picking one up, I absolutely understand why.
Yeah.
So the EM2 program, 1947, the British Army starts printing manuals. They officially adopt it for 6 months. And then they decide not to because of budget issues, and America's really pushing for that 7.62 cartridge, which we all know is a mistake.
Yep.
So that's the 1940s. We enter the 60s, where America has now introduced the M16. They've decided to go with a 5.56 cartridge, or it's in the talks, and Britain's watching America and these big battle cartridges not work. Again, combat is emulant of World War II. There's no need for it. So in the 1960s, Britain goes its own way, and it creates the EWS, which is the Enfield Weapon System. So this is the start of the SA80 series, was the 1960s. During the EWS trials, you have the XL series, which is Experimental Land Service, designation XL, XL00, and then they chamber that in the 4.5 cartridge. So again, this debate's happening. Britain wants to go its own way. They've got this 4.85 cartridge ready to go. UK government looks at it and says, simplify it, make it cheap. So this is where you get the XL65, which is essentially a stamped polymer plastic EM2. and it's something they refer to as value engineering. So it was literally, if you were to take a precision bolt action rifle and make it as cheap as possible, like quite honestly, it's kind of what PSA's business model is.
Mm.
It's value engineering. It's taking a concept, make it as cheap as possible.
What's fascinating here is I think you just described like the exact minute that British engineering kind of shat the bed was like the British government going, "Ooh, price."
Yeah. Well, it's the '60s, and for those who don't know British history, Britain is broke after the war, and they can't afford to do anything, quite
Yep.
frankly.
Yep.
So, but they're also too stubborn to listen to America, which is quite ironic. So, um, yeah. So then we get to 1978, where the 5.56 is officially adopted. Uh, Britain's kind of laughing because they were like, "Ah, we told you so," because they knew an intermediate cartridge was coming. So the fact they designed the XL65 around the 4.85 actually worked out, because when we get to the XL70 series, which is really your first recognizable SA80 shape, big boxy receiver, the polymer triangular front handguard, all that sort of thing. Uh, all they really did was kind of change the caliber to the XL65, and you get the XL70. Um, and then from the XL70, you get into the L85A1. Um, so people are probably asking, well, if the EM85 was so good and all they did was change the caliber, where did it all go wrong?
Hmm.
um, so it all went wrong because during the 5.56 changeover, the Enfield team was given about I believe 8 months and £2 million to redesign the entire rifle. So the truth is, between the XL65 and the XL70, it's not they're not at all similar. And quite frankly, as I believe Jonathan Ferguson says in his book, Thornycroft to SA80, during the changeover from the XL65 to the XL70, all hope and value of the EM2 was lost. Um, what doesn't help is you had leaders of a design team that were quite knowledgeable, but you had a lot of new interns that were there. And, I quite frankly, I challenge anyone to create an entire new firearm in 8 months with only £2 million.
Yeah.
Um, that would be quite the feat. I mean, weapons programs are billions of dollars in years,
Yep.
So yeah, we get into the XL70. And there's just lots of issues. A lot of these starts is when politics get involved. The program is rushed. You have drama going on at Enfield. So during that period, it was passed to the Royal Small Arms Factory at Enfield. At Nottingham, and then the Enfield weapons names escaping me. But basically, Enfield takes over the project, and they were bankrupt since the EM2, and they actually wanted to sell the factory that these brand new guns were getting made in. So bids
Ooh.
were coming in to sell the equipment. So they had equipment from the 40s making these guns. British steel is on strike, so you've got bad materials, and you just get this situation where, some people say that the fact that the workers knew they were going to lose their jobs didn't help. I
Bad time to
disagree
be
with
born.
that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just a bad time to be born as a rifle.
You know what it is in a broke country that's giving it their best, but ultimately all the situation and really politics just gets in the way. Um, what didn't help was they also, during the trials for the rifle, and Britain has a habit of doing this. If you look at the Bren gun, they did the same thing. Basically, the politicians pick a rifle behind closed doors, and then they rewrite the definitions of failures and malfunctions to suit the rifle.
Wow.
um, which worked out great for the Bren, but not so much for the SA80, because they considered um, I believe it was a ejection failure or firing pin breakage to be a minor malfunction.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, because the logic was the soldier could change it in the field.
Right. Yeah, we'll just carry spares of those. Fantastic.
Well, that's what they did in the Gulf War. They issued spare pins and ejectors. So yeah, the A1 was I would argue the base of the rifle was a good design. It definitely has it had everything lined up for it in the EM2, but it didn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
So the SA80 goes to war. Gulf War is its first major conflict. It is an absolute failure. British government tries to cover it up. Media get a hold of soldier interviews. They try to cover it up. And then they're like, oh, maybe there is an issue. And they come back, well, there is an issue, sort of thing. So then we get to the A2. They realize there's a problem. The A1 had no less than, it was, I believe, 55 individual problems. And it was just major engineering flaws. I mean, there were things with the XL70 that just didn't make any sense. And going back to being rushed, design team, budgets, things of that nature. And that'll come into the EM85 later. So essentially, the UK government says, all right, we need to fix this. They go to HK, and HK says, we'll build you an entirely new rifle. And British government says, nope, just fix it. It's like, it's Thursday, you've got zero in your bank account, and your car's transmission went, and the mechanic's like, can I sell you a car? And you're like, nope, just fix it. that was the UK government.
That's where the reputation is permanently from, is the A1.
Correct. And I'm so glad you said that, because to this day, the current manuals tell you to do things with this rifle that you haven't had to do since pre-Gulf War.
Yeah, the functions. I mean, simple as like the little karate chop to the charging handle is
Exactly.
crazy, but
That is exactly an A1 issue, and that was due to weak springs and warping receivers and guide rails. That's
Yep.
exactly it. So no, I'm really glad you brought that up. Because that is the problem with the reputation of this rifle is, I have friends that went through basic training in the British military a year ago, and they were still told that the A3 was a absolute piece of rubbish, which it's not at all. This is going to anger your viewers, but the SA80 has a more reliable NATO track record for reliability than the M4.
Ooh, okay.
And I can email you those documents.
Oh god, the comments are going to be so bad.
Oh
Please
yes,
continue.
it's true. Now there could be an argument made for, okay, there's less of them made. Okay, maybe, perhaps, but the data's there. It's almost twice as reliable. The failure point for the M4, I believe, was 8,500 rounds, median fail point. The SA80 was 10,500.
Damn.
Numbers don't lie. So.
Oh god, guys, stick with the show. Stick with the show, guys.
So A2 fixes HK. The A2 is a fantastic rifle. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. I would take an A2 to war. I handled them a few weeks ago, and they are just an absolute joy. They're fantastic. So there's no issues. The HK fixed the problems. Then we get into the A3, which came into service in 2018. The A3 modification was pretty much just the upper receiver. So what they did was they put a Picatinny rail on it, Cerakoted it, a different Magpul handguard. They cut down the gas system, did a few other things, but the real thing was they changed it for modern manufacturing. Because remember, these rifles were designed to be made in a 1960s shop with lathes, essentially.
Yeah.
And HK was like, okay, we have CAD design and CNC. Let's change some components. So that's really what the A3 is. It's really an upper extension of life modification.
Yeah, it's the SA80 coming into the late 20 teens.
It's a midlife crisis. Yeah, it's just holding on. It's
I'm still relevant. Okay.
Yeah,
Just a
that's
couple more
exactly
years.
it. Because it's the typical wait, we can't afford to replace these rifles yet. Because I think 2020 was the service date for the SA80 to be phased out and been
What a
extended
bad
to
time.
2030 now.
Yeah, yeah. Like, obviously, the world in economic turmoil, it's like, oh, we are not replacing what has been, like, basically the British military's biggest PR disaster, aside from pissing on a few Taliban corpses, but that's beside the point.
Right, well, exactly. It's a very expensive process to replace a service rifle. So,
Yeah.
and again, it's working fine. The thing is, and I want to stress this to your listeners: if the A1 was that bad, they would have bought M4s and M16s. Remember, the UK Armed Forces, the UKSF, paratroopers, Royal Marines have always used an AR designed rifle since the 1960s. The
Well,
UK government knew it was there. There's this idea that the British government doesn't know what an AR-15 is. That their best troops are issued them. So if the A1 was that bad, I have no doubt they would have replaced them.
I always wondered if that was more like a PR thing because obviously, like, really the best minds in the DoD, the MOD, like they're equipping your special forces units, and they're really like they're gonna be 5-10 years ahead of the curve in
Mhm.
terms of what they're being equipped with. So when you see all of these all the cool guys, all the British cool guys running around with ARs, you're like, oh, are we gonna switch to an AR? And
Right.
I always I don't know if you know more about this than me, but like I always figured it was primarily a PR thing because you know Brits first and foremost, we are very fucking prideful.
You're right. Absolutely.
But I don't know. I always figured it was more a PR thing than like, and probably a money thing too. Because I mean, buying an entire arsenal, like to and what do you do with the SA80s? Like sell them on to some former British colonies, which we have done to a limited extent. But
Correct. hmm
um,
Yeah,
but
I
anyway,
mean, it all comes down to the British wanted a bullpup for urban fighting and for vehicle
yeah,
work during the Cold War. That's why Europe goes to bullpups. People are like, why are bullpups only in Europe? Well, it's because they were on the front line with Russia during the Cold War, and everything was mechanized.
yeah,
Everything had to be vehicle work. Everything was NBC consideration. Whereas UKSF don't have that mission. So
yeah,
you give them a different tool for the job. It doesn't, again, people use this as evidence that the S80 is bad. Well, why don't SF use it? Well, because it doesn't suit their mission. The Royal Marines love the carbine version and the SA80 for shipboarding, oddly enough. No one really talks about that.
mm,
It's very easy to sling over your back, climb mountains, climb rigging, go through. I mean, the carbine SA80 has an 11.5-inch barrel. It is 20 inches long. So is very, very good for those things.
yeah,
But yeah, just not UKSF's mission. And I think UKSF using all the support elements of NATO and the US, I think that had something to do with just their armories are all in the same place. It's easier, that sort of thing.
yeah. That makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, so is there anything else to kind of add to the history of the SA80? I think we're just on like a kind of a final note is we seem to be looking at a replacement. I mean, I know it's like 2030, but there was that I forget what the designation. It's like the 11L11A3 or something like that for
Hmm.
the Reptilia. Like
Oh
Reptilia's
yes.
involved with it. The
Mhm.
fancy tan Cerakoted AR basically.
Mhm. Yeah, so right now the I forgot the name of the operation, or sorry, the requirement document. Right now the UK is looking at replacing the SA80 series, and again, when we say SA80, we mean the family.
Yep.
Right now the front runners are Sarko, I believe, in Finland, and Beretta is who they're mainly looking at. No doubt Sig will apply. But what's really funny is with America not so much anymore in the last 8 months, but with America looking at the 6.8 cartridge and Britain replacing its rifle, you kind of have a repeat of history happening because you have Britain wanting to keep 5.56 like they
Yep.
wanted to keep the 4.85. America's pushing for this new cartridge, which is what they're doing now. And you're like, oh, bloody hell, is this really a
Yeah.
repeat of history?
It absolutely is, and no one really believes in what America's doing. And honestly, a lot of America doesn't believe in what they're doing right now. And then I just found what this rifle is. So it's the KS1 rifle
Oh, the
by
Knights.
Knights Armament. Yep,
Mhm.
and it has a ridiculous British designation, uh, adopted as the L43A1 AIW to some
Individual
extent.
weapon. Yeah.
Yep, yep. Um, where is that being fielded?
Royal Marines,
Ah,
SAS,
yes.
Airborne.
British Army Ranger Regiment. Yep.
That's it. Yeah, the new Ranger Regiment, which has the most un-English emblem ever. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh, Google it. Yeah, just UK Ranger Regiment badge. It looks at like Hunger Games atrocious.
It's funny because I know some I know an American Ranger who is very gung ho. Is this formed in 2021?
It's horrible, isn't it?
How? What the? What?
It's horrible. Who came up with that?
That looks like it belongs to the Imperium of Man, not
Yeah,
Britain. What in God's name?
it
Okay.
doesn't. And then if you look at any other regimental cat badge,
Oh,
it
it's classic like
yeah, it's yeah,
Britannia stuff. That's
yeah. It's like who came up with that?
wow. Probably an American.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy. Okay. So yeah, it looks like there is an off ramp, funnily enough, in an AR variant. So Americans do get to give a little fist pump.
Mhm,
Then we may be running a Knights service wide in the near future, but who knows?
mhm.
Knights price point, it might not end up being a Knights, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see. It's going to be interesting. I think I really don't know because England's going to want something unique. I don't think they want an AR-15. I really don't.
Hmm.
Um, Britain needs something unique. The KS1 isn't getting really good reviews out from what I'm hearing. What I'm understanding, the rifle is designed to be used with a suppressor, but no one wants to have that potato on the end of their gun. In which case, you don't get the performance it was designed for. So
Yeah.
we'll see. And again, everyone's going with suppressors, and quite frankly, England can't afford knights armament. You know.
Yeah, like for a couple of units, maybe if we save our pocket money, but doing a service wide change and service wide adoption of suppressors
Hmm.
all the time, and if it's not something that can go without a suppressor, like we're gonna be right back to A1 kind of messes. Especially if they want different barrel lengths, start getting fussy with like
Hmm.
different rolls, which we will. So kind of kind of an interesting problem, and
Hmm.
as you said, history repeating itself.
Yeah, I'm really watching with a keen eye with what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, continuing on, the SA80. Is there anything else to add with the history? I don't, unless it comes up. That's pretty much it. Hopefully, that gives your viewers a good understanding of where SA80 comes from, where it stands, and into moving forward.
Yeah. So, with that little piece of nostalgia, it's funny. The A3 didn't even exist when I left the UK. So
Oh wow.
the most reliable experience I had was with like I briefly got to shoot an A2, but I mostly trained on an A1, and so
Mhm.
I had the classic experience of going, this thing's a piece of shit,
Right,
and
right.
getting to enjoy
Mhm,
joining in on the hate. And then I moved to the US, and of course, I get like a weird nostalgia bug where I'm like, man, I really wish
mhm,
I could own one of those. So much in the same boat as yourself, except I didn't decide to manufacture the thing.
mhm.
So no, I would have. It would be 30 years later, and I would have wasted a lot of money and achieved nothing.
Yeah.
So no, I'm glad that you're pursuing this. So the
Of course.
EM85. So you've described this as a remanufactured
Mhm.
SA80. What do we mean by remanufactured?
Okay, so, um, remanufactured. So when you there's really 3 ways you can make a firearm. You can make it new, or a car or any item. You can make it brand new from the ground up. Just it is new. It's totally new design. Offer it to the market. So the EM85, it is a new firearm, um, but I prefer the remanufactured term because of what it's not. So what is it not? It's not an SA80 clone. A lot of people will call it a clone, which I find is a compliment. It is not a clone for 2 reasons. One, a clone, by definition, means complete one-to-one, which it is not. It is also not made in the same place with the same materials as a service SA80,
Mm.
which is a good thing for the customer. I need to stress that.
Yep.
So it's not a clone. It is not a kit because it comes to the customer fully complete. And it is not a modification or a chassis of sorts. So we'll get into this, but it's not a modifying for a current rifle. It's not a kit that you attach to an existing platform. So that really leaves the last option, which is a remanufacture. So by remanufacture, what we mean is we've taken the SA80 design completely from the ground up, remade it in CAD for modern engineering, for techniques, materials, sciences, knowledge. We've actively improved every downfall inherent to the design, which again, even on the A3, which I've gotten to handle, it originally comes from that XL70 series design. So there are just things inherently wrong with this design that you cannot change, but we have. So when we say remanufactured, we've quite literally taken the rifle, improved it, made it for the modern market, and we're making it new. So in my opinion and the company's opinion, the most fitting word is a remanufacture, because that is what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I love that. And
Which
and pointing out the key differences, I think, is like in everything that you're doing with this, it's like the education, really telling people what you're doing, and
Mhm.
for the customers what they're getting. Yeah, I appreciate that kind of insight and explaining.
Absolutely, and we'll dive into the details of that here. And that's key for us is we want to educate people on these rifles from the history all the way up to the EM85. A lot of projects that have hit the market have claimed to be SA80s, L85s, and quite frankly, with where this rifle sits, with the engineering we've improved with it, I don't want to call it an L85. That's really the stage that we're at this point. It's like if a collector has an option of an original transferable A1 or an EM85, they're gonna go with the EM85 because they're gonna get the exact rifle, but better. It's like that meme, "I'm you, but better," you know? Um, and we'll go into why that is in it shortly. But I think it's important to understand, has this been tried before? And the big question, parts kits. So there have been a few civilian SA80s sold to the public market back in, again, 1985. About 40 guns, semi-autos, made it to Switzerland.
Wow.
Those are all A1 modification, very early A1. They don't even have mag catches or any of the minor improvements that were done in the late 70s, early 90s.
Oh,
Sorry,
they're
late
cool
80s, early 90s.
bastards.
So they're very early guns. There are no replacement parts for them, and they're all very quickly have shot out barrels, springs are failing, and all things of this nature. So, and same with the A1s here. There's like 2 or 3 here, I believe, transferables, and they're all. I mean, the last one A1 I sold was absolutely. I've got pictures of it. It is. I mean, if it wasn't a transferable, you legitimately wouldn't pay $800 for this thing. I mean, it went on Gunbroker. It's one of 3 or 4 in the country, and it topped out at $8,000. Because it did, like, you could tell it didn't work. It had no barrel left. It had no paint left. All the furniture had broken on it. It was a war piece. You know, so these rifles, like the original ones that went out to the public, just they're not going to exist anymore.
Yeah.
They're really not. Um, and that was part of making this project happen and why we've made the changes, because we looked at that and we said, okay, how do we prevent this from happening? Like, what parts have failed in these rifles? When you look at the collector rifle market, what parts wear out? What parts, do we need to make replaceable to ensure that our customers' investment stays true? Furthermore, UK laws, there will be no parts kits. And this is one of those things that people hear me say, and there's always the itch of what if, and I fully understand that. But I would not have started this company on a what if.
Yeah.
And we would not have gone to the detail on this rifle for a what if. because the truth is, this rifle is so rare that we could have made an 80% look-alike kind of SA80, and quite frankly, the American market wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah,
They
so
would never be able to guess.
I wanted to discuss this very briefly on my end because,
Mhm,
one of the things that I was interested in at Shot Show last year was the AKB 23
mhm,
from Aly and Kaufman, and so that project, like, it uh, it fascinated me. It was really cool to see like a shootable, kit for a BRN 180 that the American market could pick up, and it's like to me at that point before I came across Murdoch and Co, I was like, "Damn, this is the closest thing we're ever gonna
mhm.
get."
Yeah.
Like sweet.
Mhm,
So I picked one up. It's a fantastic range toy rifle. I enjoy it. But then I saw what you're doing, and they are different end goals. I'll say like there's one that again most Americans, and you even see it in the videos, like no hate on Ali and Kaufman, but you see Americans like pick it up and they look at it and they're like, oh wow, this it's got the same system as an SA80, and it's like, no,
mhm.
no. It's a great dress up kit for an existing gun that's available to the US, but it is quite different in a lot
Mhm.
of major functional ways. So to just jump
Yeah,
in there with that real
so
quick.
yeah, no, of course. The AKB-23 is not the first to attempt to bring an SA80 to the US market.
Is it not?
Earlier would be a company called, or a gentleman called Preaxis, and they had it was a PL85, I believe. And what it was a kit, and he sold them for, I think it was $8,000 back in
Woo.
2004, 2006. It was just after the assault weapons ban cleared, and he hubbled this thing together, um, and it was made from some AR-180 parts he had, and you basically just had to figure it out. And it was, used in a complete AR trigger pack, and it was not. Long story short, nobody got their money. He acted like he had a full rifle. It turned out, I think it was just like a airsoft or a dummy one that he was
Oh,
claiming
yikes.
was the finished product, and he no longer exists. Which again, for us, lessons learned.
Yep.
So that was the very earliest that not a lot of people are aware of. Um, but that again, it was a rushed attempt at something that just can't be rushed. And then we get to the AKB. I'm friends with the owner or one of the owners of that company. Um, and I think what he's doing is fantastic. I am 100% supportive of anyone that brings attention to this rifle, because it's like a video game. If you get that initial draw, you're gonna watch the history, you're gonna start reading books, you're gonna, I hope, discover Murdoch and Co, where we can take the customer who is curious about that rifle and take them the rest of the way and say, here's the history, here's, you know what a real one looks and operates like, which we'll get into later. But um part of the company mission is to share this rifle. We're going to be Murdoch Co is building a collection we are going to be very actively public with. So the AKB bringing attention to the SA80, Murdoch Co 100% supports. Um, as long as you said, and this is where education comes in, it is a AR, essentially a ball popping AR chassis for a BRN 180 with a 3D printed cover over such. So as long as the customer understands that they're fulfilling that vibe, it's getting them interested. But please do not. The main thing for us is, do not judge the AKB as if it's an SA80 in terms of shooting, feel, trigger, um, manual of arms, all those things. As long as the customer understands that they're not getting an SA80 experience, um, that's what's important for us, and it's only important to us because we want the story of this rifle to remain true. Um, and that's why we're putting so much work into the EM85, because we understand that this is probably the only chance the American market will get at these rifles. So we have to do it right. As I said, we could have made an 80% look-alike, but we are doing everything down to even every single marking is the exact same size and place, minus of course the royal appointment markings, which is replaced with our coat of arms.
Hmm.
But in terms of the AKB, we think it's a fantastic project. We're gonna hopefully film some content side by side in the future. But if you want that SA80 again look and vibe, go for it. But if you want to come experience an SA80 because you're interested in that firearm, that's where I would say Murdoch and Co. then carries the torch.
Gotcha. No, and I appreciate the clarification. So, um, I guess kind of getting into the EM85 itself, like what are all of the crucial points
Okay.
of detail that
Hmm.
you guys have gone into to make this, an authentic experience?
Absolutely. Let's dive into it. I'll probably have to timestamp this part.
Yeah.
So the last thing I'll say on yeah, you alluded to that the AKB, just because it has similar parts, it is not an SA80.
Yep.
Just because many people say the SA80 is just a bullpupped AR-180. And I was reading my notes from the armories, and I found a very good sentence applicable to today.
Mm.
Um, so first of all, when the SA80 was getting discovered, there was a lot of different bullpups looked at, and what's funny is somebody did bullpup a AR-180, and then they put it. It might have even been a milled lower, but it
Hmm.
looks almost identical to the AKB-23. And I urge people to Google it. It's called a Howa AR-180. So
Huh.
that's HOWA, all in capitals, AR-180. So if you type in bullpupped Howa AR-180, which I believe is a Japanese company,
Oh, wow.
isn't that interesting?
Huh. That is fascinating.
Hmm. Yeah, so when I see the AKB, I see that rifle with
Mm.
my eyes personally. Um, but applicable to the operating system, um, in 1974, it was found. So Britain was playing around with the design, and basically Britain kind of tried to do what Aly and Kaufman did, and it was found that converting an AR-180 or any existing design was not cost effective or practical for the SA80. Um, and then going on from that would be to say the SA80, reading from my notes here from the Royal Armouries, it reads, to say the SA80 is an AR-180 is incorrect, because that would be to say that the G36, the ACR, and the AUG are all just AR-180s.
Mhm.
They borrow from the design, but they are very much their own rifles.
Hmm.
And to add to that is no part of the SA80 is interchangeable with an AR-180.
The listeners are going to be very upset learning all of these things that they've been very happily saying for years.
Yeah. Well, and again, I want people to research these things, look into these firearms,
Yeah, yeah.
and this is where Murdoch and Co.'s mission comes in. We want to educate people on these things because we know the American civilian won't get their hands on a service L85, but they can get their hands on it at Murdoch and Co. So the EM85 project, why is simply, we touched on it before. We see this as the only chance that the American market will get to experience these rifles. So with that, quite frankly, comes the responsibility of authenticity. How do you accomplish that? We have some amazing resources around the world that are helping with this project. Least of which is the Royal Armouries. Certain parts of the MOD have helped.
That's the
We've
craziest part to me, just to note.
Mhm. Yeah, it is, because, to get access to these guns over there is incredible. And I really don't think people understand how hard it is to get access to firearms in the UK.
No, and just a quick note, like I am shocked that they care to help because like for all of these, like it's a government organization, of course, and for
Mhm.
them to care about what on paper to them is a American gun manufacturing project,
Mhm.
like it is otherworldly that you got access. So I would love to hear about anything you can share on that. But
Yeah, I mean, I would boil it down to what I tell all of our clients, and that is simply, when you have a mission, as long as you are truthful and genuine, at the end of the day, people are just people. These big intimidating organizations, they're full of people who want to help and who have your vision in mind. And I think what's happened is we have, by the grace of God, we've been very, very lucky to be just in the right place at the right time. And I think people are taking us seriously because of the work we've done, and they see that and they want to be a part of this story, and we welcome that. Um, there's not really, because I can't say to what made them make the decisions to work with us, other than that, really. So
Yeah. No, I mean, credit to you.
Um, so the EM85 project, why EM? So the EM2, the very good British service rifle. The EM name is actually a throwback to that. Um, it is because it is what the SA80 could have been, because we made all those improvements. We took our time. We weren't constrained by this rushed design that the British government had in the XL70. Um, so we named it EM because it's pointing to that legacy rifle that could have been so great. It also happens to be my initials, which is a funny, Evan Murdoch, Echo Mike, which may be a funny coincidence, maybe not, maybe it's meant to be, who knows, you know. So what makes the M85 special? So the M85, again, it is not. It's a remanufacture, and I hope the past hour of this conversation has your clients and listeners are now like, oh, of course, like this makes sense now.
Yeah.
We are quite literally taking the design, we improved it, made it for modern manufacturing, and we're making it. We're remanufacturing it. What makes it special is all the data and information we have for this rifle coming together to make it happen. But we're also not constrained by it, and this is really important. We looked at previous projects and where they had failed in the past, and there was three things that made unique small business firearm startups fail like this. The first is financing. So person doesn't have money. That's quite understandable and makes sense. The second one, and this ties into the funding, is everyone in the past went to the market publicly with nothing more than a napkin idea.
Yeah.
So when you look at the PL85, when you look at Sturmgewehr projects, when you look at, I can't think of any more off the top of my head. But when you, and again, if this sounds incorrect, please correct me, because I do want to learn where there are mistakes. But they went to the public with nothing more than a napkin idea, and they asked for money.
Problem.
That doesn't go any well, because that ties into problem one. And the third problem was they were so constrained by a design that they couldn't get access to information for. What do I mean by that? I believe there's a VSS or AK project currently, and he's trying to make it so one-to-one, but he doesn't have parts and he doesn't have plans. Ian McCullen hinted at that as being a bad idea, and we are talking to Ian also. He's a big supporter. Again, I can't talk for him, but he's been very supportive of the project, both publicly and privately.
Yeah, of any American who's got their hands on, right? Of any American, he's probably the one who's had his hands on the SA80 more than most.
Right. But and he mentioned about that other project. You can't just take measurements of parts or guess and expect it to work. And the reason and it's very common with the STG project, you really can't do that. Like, you cannot be so constrained. So what we've done at Murdoch and Co is we've accepted that this isn't an SA80, it's not an L85. And when you accept that, there is this liberating feeling as a business and a designer that, yeah, we can make that change. Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, let's make this to our spec. Let's make the bolt our weight, the springs this weight, the recoil force this weight, the dwell time this. We know it works. And there's a huge liberation. And I think if anyone's looking to do a project, I would really urge you to listen to what I'm saying. When it's okay to deviate from these designs, you don't have original plans. If you try to guess, you will always spend more money guessing. Whereas you can make a design from the ground up the right way and set that good foundation, because if we tried to make it a 1-to-1 SA80 and sell it as a clone, which again it's never going to be because it's not made in England, it's not made by Enfield, we would have ran into all these issues, and we would have quite literally just been trying to figure stuff out as they went along. But no, we have a fantastic team of visionaries and engineers, and we said, okay, we're making this firearm. Here's all the specs. Here's all the data we have. Make it as close as possible, but make the operating system and the core, no guessing, make it work. And it gives you that liberty. And in doing that, you take this rifle down. It is no different internally, externally than to an SA80, minus one or two minor things.
That was one of the things that blew me away. And if I'm incorrect on this, we can always amend it. But you mentioned that you were planning on taking this to the Royal Armoury and swapping parts between the two.
Absolutely.
That is wild work, and I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a great one. We might end up importing a deactivated one just because it's easier paperwork wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can fully interchange parts on these rifles. And with that said, there were three components when we looked at how old rifles have failed in the past that we had to change. So, and for one, the investment value; two, to ensure they can run; and three, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but simple legality. We have the ATF here, and there are certain rules you have to abide by. Kits in the past have gotten into trouble because they were put on the market and the ATF said they could be full auto convertible. And this goes back to having the liberty of making a design from the ground up, because it's not going to be a clone because it's not full auto.
Yeah,
so
it's a surprisingly big component.
Correct. But we've accepted that, so now we can make it like, ladies and gentlemen, this is the EM85, make no mistake.
Yeah.
In many ways, we've had some very prominent people call it the L85A4, which is a huge compliment. But it's its own design. We own the design to it. So some of those components that we've changed was the bolt on the SA80 has an auto trip. We've taken that off because simple legality reasons, and nothing can be full auto or easily convertible.
Yep.
We've replaced the extremely complex bullpup trigger pack of the L85 with an AR-based trigger system. I say based because no parts are interchangeable, and we've made them look as close to the SA80 as possible. But it uses the same hammer, disconnector, and trigger with the exact same off-the-market springs as any AR-15. The reason for that is the customer can then choose their spring weights. If there's for whatever reason an issue, even something as simple as a rock getting stuck somewhere awkward, the customer can take it apart and it's a familiar system.
That's right.
The external pins of the rifle are in the same place. You have the same takedown pins. We have a dummy selector. It does not move on the EM85. The reason for that is if you introduce a moving component to the trigger pack, we've been in communication with the ATF the whole process, and they said if you introduce a moving component, it opens the floodgates to interpretation of full auto conversion. So to protect our customers' investment, and quite frankly, turn what is a legal gray area into as solid as we can get it, to reassure our clients. We just decided to make it a dummy. You can't move it, but it does. It serves the same purpose as the takedown pin for the fire control group. The other things we've done, trigger pack, the barrel. The barrel is the same profile, same everything, but we've made it so it can be manufactured easily or replicated if anything happens to Murdoch and Co. Which is important because we want these rifles to be shot. We want them to be used. And we've accepted the liberty of designing this from the ground up. So we've modernized it.
That is something really cool. I mean, it's funny because I was talking about this interview to a friend. Actually, I believe it was our camera guy, and he was mentioning, like, really like the whole concept of this, but it bringing up the manufacturing replacement parts and having that intention brings up like the Hudson 9, and like, oh, that, obviously Daniel Defense brought it back, but there was a brief
Mhm.
period where it's like, oh wow, you just adopted this like cool new platform and now it's seemingly gone forever and you're kind of out of luck. So having it kind of building with redundancy for even the company, God forbid, but that's a really cool thing to have in mind from the get go, especially to protect the investment of your customers like far into the future, even
Mhm.
beyond the company existing or not.
Well, and that is exactly it. Because if again, when you accept you have the liberty to make changes, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And oddly enough, I got that idea. It came to me one day when we were designing the rifle, early on in the concept phase, and in so I have the privilege to have many friends that fly vintage World War II aircraft. Um, P-51s, P-40s, Spitfires, Messerschmitts, you
Cool.
name it. Um, and while I was visiting Duxford, one of my friends is very good friends with the owner of Aircraft Restoration Company, which literally builds World War II warbirds from the ground up.
Mm, a
Um,
great analog for you guys.
well, it is, and we actually we want to do a co-interview mini documentary with them in the future,
Mm,
because we're bringing all those skills to the modern market in a different sense.
yeah.
Um, but Aircraft Restoration Company, this is where I got the idea, and quite frankly, the the personal permission to make these changes. Because in the back of my head there was always that, well, it's not 100%, it's not 100%.
Yep.
Um, when they remake warbirds, owners go to them and say, hey, I have this rivet, make me a Spitfire. They use modern machines, modern techniques. They make changes that make sense for safety and longevity of the aircraft. But nobody goes to an airshow and says, "Oh, that's not a Spitfire. Oh, that's not a
Yep.
P-51." So that, and the same with World War II vehicles when they restore, or they remake, or World War II vehicles. They use modern seals, modern liquids. They change designs of bolts, tap threads, all these things for maintenance and wear items, because the story that these items have to tell is more important than parts and technical data that no one outside the company will really see. So that's where I got the idea that it was one, okay, and where and how to make these changes in an acceptable way.
That's fascinating because it's kind of a meme, Oh, that's not clone correct. It's such like a painstaking thing that you see like Reddit threads explode with like, oh, that's slightly off. This isn't quite correct. It's like, there's a way to do this that is like authentic but kind of repeatable and something that's what's the word? It's sustainable, really. Like going forward, we have a good friend of the show and guest who's been on, Aaron Lovelace. He rebuilds um, I believe it's early 20th century bikes from nothing in much the same way you're describing.
Oh,
Like, hey,
brilliant.
I've got this rivet. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. And the guy is like a savant. He rebuilds the engine from like old
Wow.
illustrations and does all the CAD. He
Hmm.
genius. Like, I should put you guys in contact 'cause I think you'd have a lot in common. But
Absolutely. Yeah.
but he does all of that just from like nothing, and I can't imagine when he first told me how like his process. I was like, oh my god, I can't imagine like jumping through all of the pain of people who are like, oh, that's not quite correct, like this is slightly off. And I'm sure it's a very similar process where it's like, no, you have to forgive yourself in certain ways. Like it's 99%, it's 100%. Like it kind of makes no sense. Like, okay, sorry, these aren't O-rings from the 1910s.
Exactly.
So I guess one of the major questions people are going to be asking about the EM85 is, why is this a limited run? Why is there a cap on how many are going to be out there in the world?
Yeah, so this is probably one of our second most asked questions, and the simple reason is parts. So the M85 comes with a number of original components: the handguard, cocking handle, and magwell. Now, the magwell and the handguard alone are, inching towards $1 million to mass produce.
Whew.
Um, So that kind of answers the question in a short form right there.
Yep.
Now, with that said, there are a number of those, especially the A1 cocking handles, handguards, and a number of magwells out there in the wild. So if a client wishes, say they collected them, they like SA80s, and they had the dream of owning one, then they absolutely can send them to Murdoch and Co, and we would be more than happy to essentially finish their rifle.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And I guess the dirty question, like if you have to ask about price, should you even be looking at this thing? But if someone provides their own parts, will that affect the price point, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so the price point will remain the same.
Gotcha.
And the reason for that is you're getting the exact same quality product. We see no reason to make it a lower price, because at the end of the day, the cost to get those components are actually relatively plentiful. Wouldn't say plentiful, but they they're more the challenge in obtaining them is finding them, not so much the price. So they're not
Gotcha.
price prohibitive. Um, they obviously would be if we manufactured them, but it's not where the money and the value of manufacturing to make this rifle possible is, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Gotcha. All right, so moving right along. So, as we've kind of covered a little bit here and there, this isn't like a mass produced project. So, what the EM85 is, from everything I understand, is it's going to be a very limited run. So, can you get into kind of what that means? What kind of numbers are we talking limited? And, will there be a not so limited edition version of this project?
right, fantastic. So you're absolutely correct. The M85 is a limited edition piece. A part of me doesn't want to make it limited edition, um, but the market and the circumstances of this rifle essentially make it limited edition. In order for this project to succeed, would be the other part of that. So, limited edition, we're looking at about 50 guns. Right now, we are selling 30 to 35 publicly. The other guns will be reserved for Murdoch and Co.'s collection, um, or will be special models made for auction. Um, so, why are they limited edition? So, when I set out to do this project back in 2018, the idea was that I simply wanted an SA80. And then it got so far into the project that I realized, well, I've got all the parts in CAD. Why not just make them for everybody?
Yeah.
There are some really limiting parts when it comes to manufacturing cost on this gun. Uh, the stampings are the biggest one. So when people look at the L85, they see two stampings. They see an upper and a lower. This design has over 240 individual components. We've made over 50 custom tools, stamping dies, and everything else for each part. Each stamping part needs anywhere from 2 to 8 different stamping dies manufactured. We have made beautiful upper and lower stampings. They are exactly, but I mean, they couldn't have come out better. We worked with first of all, myself as the owner and head, leading this project, but we've worked with two old gentlemen that have been sheet metal work stamping die makers, and pretty much through the kindness of their heart, they've given their time and expertise to this project, and through that, we've been able to replicate perfectly the SA80 and L85 stampings. With that said, the
Damn.
one component that is an unavoidable, I mean, quotes anywhere from $350 to $500,000 component is the magazine well. So the magazine well is an extremely tight, complex part. People say that sheet metal stamping is like folding paper. I think that's thrown around in the AK world. I would add a caveat to that and say your paper is made of glass, because sheet metal can tear and be put under stress that in a lot of ways paper can't. So it makes stamping very tight corner radiuses very difficult. And The stamping die for the magazine is a multi. We have a number of originals. Is a multi stamping operation component essentially. So by the grace of God and luck, a number of magazine wells were never put into rifles out of Nottingham Small Arm Factory when it shut down. And I guess from what I'm hearing, old workers kind of just took stuff. And they made it over here. And Murdoch and Co has acquired them, and we have 50 of those magazine wells. So each EM85 will have a genuine Nottingham factory magazine well, which not only makes it
awesome.
a real part of history on these guns, but it makes the project possible, because that stamping die is so complex and intricate. It's the main it's why everyone does the milled lowers. It's why the AKB is a milled lower. It's why the pre-Axis kit before it had a milled lower, because no one can replicate that magazine well. I have no doubt Murdoch and Co may be able to in the future, but as it stands right now, the EM85s are going to have original magazine wells, which means even
What a workaround. Sorry.
Well, you find a way. But that's what makes them
Yeah.
special. Is even if we made a new firearm with a new magazine well, it's not going to have an original one. It's not going to have the other original parts, which are the handguard. Each EM85 comes with an original MOD handguard. And that is, again, it's a $500,000 part to produce. It's 2 to 4 plastic injections with a sheet metal stamped internal heat shield. Very, very, very complex part to manufacture. So I'm just waiting for her to stop breathing. So with those two components, the two highest price components, again, Murdoch and Co has found themselves with a collection of handguards and magazine wells. That is how we're making these rifles possible. And it also means that each EM85 will have genuine parts that tell a story to them. And again, it's protecting that investor's or collector's investment. It doesn't matter if someone copies that, because they're never going to have, even if they have access to these rifles, which Murdoch & Co is the first company to have access to them. Every copy airsoft gun attempt is always just based off pictures. Murdoch & Co is the only company to officially, with permission, have access to these rifles to collect technical data for manufacturing. That's really, really special. So you combine that with the original parts, and I think it's clear even more so that the correct nomenclature of remanufacture really starts to settle.
So, kind of a last point on the rifles that you are selling. So, are these divided into different variants? Will that just be like an A1 or an A2 for sale? Like, how does that work out?
This gets into the original parts. So the original parts on this rifle that make it so collectible, for one reason, is the magwell, the handguard, and the cocking handle. So we are making the EM85 A1 and A2. So an A1 will have the A1 cocking handle, the correct stamped markings. All the coatings will be to reflect the A1 modification. So nitrided gas keys, nitrided bolts. The A2, on the other hand, will have a polished bolt, polished gas key. It's going to have the laser engraving underneath the stamping. A2 correct MOD surplus cocking handle. But internally and operationally, they will be the same. So you're getting the same when a customer buys a EM85A1, they are not buying a L85A1, which will fail. Expect the same performance from both rifles, but you will get those aesthetic features to make your rifle special. On top of that, Murdoch & Co is producing we're going to make a UGL version, so the underslung grenade launcher, with a dummy launcher, of course, but we will have one of those. We're making the carbine, the L22A2 carbine. We'll probably sell those uppers separately, so those who own EM85s can convert their firearm to an SBR if they wish, shoot it as a carbine. And then we're toying with, nothing's official, but we may be selling those separately to non-owners of EM85. So if you want an upper to tinker, strip, take apart, go for it. We can provide that for you. We're also going to make an LSW variant, so the light support weapon. Again, selling those uppers separately, and then one of each of those, the UGL, the LSW, and the carbine variant, will go to auction. And that is to helps offset the cost of manufacturing these, which of course leads us to, what does this rifle cost?
So, it's something that I brought up when I first called you about this interview. Was like, obviously, one of the biggest standout things to me. I'm not, a collector trying to fill like a beautiful safe of heritage firearms. Like, I'm a shooter, and currently, and a lot of our listeners are. So, for the average shooter, you're gonna top out spending on a rifle like 2 to 3 grand is about where people start to go, ooh, it's got to be really
Mm-hmm.
bloody impressive at that point. Of course, for shooters, there are different priorities. Like, we all have different priorities with what we're trying to get out of a firearm. Now, the price point for the EM85, if I'm not wrong, is right around 12 grand US, right?
Dot on exactly 12,000.
Yep. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, for a 5.56 semi-auto
Mm-hmm.
rifle, most people are gonna see that and go, "Oh, I guess this is what a heart attack feels like." And that I think that is a valid response. It's price sensitivity in today's market is something I wanted to touch on
Mm-hmm.
because that we have some companies kind of like changing up to kind of meet the ever shrinking value of the dollar and
Mm-hmm.
what the consumer has to spend. And I don't know. I'm somewhat biased on this because I get why the EM85 costs what it does. And I think from what everyone's heard in this conversation so far, those who understand, US manufacturing as well as like the insane amount of you know, time that goes into a passion project like this to make it happen and to make it real, I think they'll understand, especially when you start talking about tools and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
12K to the average consumer who comes across this project and goes, "Oh, maybe I'll pick up an EM85," and then they click on your website and go, "Oh my god, 12 grand! What? Who, does this man think like Jesus touched the weapon?" What do you I guess, what do you say to people who maybe don't know the full story? If they had just come out of the woods and they come across the EM85, see the price tag, and go, "What is that?" Like, what's kind of your pitch?
Hear what we have to say in education, because you're right. The average consumer, with the mindset of the market as it stands, that is shocking. But once you listen to this conversation, read everything on our website, scroll through our Instagram, it all makes sense. When you're buying an EM85, you're not only joining a very special club, but you're helping a company grow that is, we really do believe in what we're doing is meaningful work. Um, you're supporting all of our other projects, and you're making this gun come to life, and you're allowing us to do further work. To be honest, the price tag of 12,000, it was originally going to be 18. 18 was kind of profit wise where we wanted to be. Um, but I decided instead to make it 12 because the price of dual night vision is 12,000. The price of a setup bolt gun with an optic, the full package, hovers around 8 to 10. And the average person has about $12,000 worth of stuff. If they want something meaningful, they can sell in terms of night vision kitted out rifles. So 12,000 as a collective number for the industry is quite frankly average and fully expected for a user to spend that amount of cash on their collection throughout a number of years.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we wanted a gun. We wanted those people who are passionate about this rifle to have access to it. As I said, originally 18,000 was the price. Um, but we brought it down to 12 for those reasons. And I grew up with really lower class dirt poor in the UK. Um, So I understand what it is like to, live in a family, can't pay bills, and all this sort of thing. So it wasn't out of spite for that. If anything, it's out of an understanding for that, which is why we've also done the pre-orders. Um, I wanted the opportunity for people to get this rifle for $6,000,
Mm,
for 50% down, and the other 6,000 is due before or at shipment of product. Um, but there's only, again, there's only so much you can do. At the end of the day, I can't do this for free, unfortunately. I would love to,
yeah,
you
you
know.
you mentioned you mentioned the 12K price point is like barely breaking even per rifle.
Correct. Yeah, it is. Obviously, we're making it financially viable. But 18,000 was the original number. Um, which is why we're making the specialty rifles that are going to be auctioned off, because that was my decision to, okay, how do we offset this? Quite frankly, almost act of kindness. Um, how do we offset it? And then that's why we're doing the auction guns.
Yeah.
Um, because it is ridiculously expensive to manufacture rifles. And I think the American consumer has gotten used to cheap rifles being made by multi-million-dollar companies. And we're not that here at Murdoch and Co. And even when we do get there, we want to offer a quality at a price that will, at that point, be familiar to our customers. Um, so the other thing when it comes to that price is, you mentioned today that the dollar's losing value,
Yeah.
and there's a reason that, so here at Murdoch and Co, we take the extra step to make all of our items a collector's item. We hand engrave and serialize all of our flash hiders and products. If you have an AKB, I urge you to look at our flash hider collection. It's beautifully manufactured, all the same care and research goes into EM85, goes into all of our products. But everything is hand engraved, and very early on, we had a few people say, "Why is it taking so long?" And then they got it, and they said, "You know what? I think I understand it now, because we're engraving all of our products, because 5 years from now, and a serial number 85 flash hider is going to be worth a lot of money." Um, and we wanted to make products that were not consumer based, because essentially in an inflationary economy that we live in, Murdoch and Co would rather make an investment for our customers than a consumer item which they are truly throwing away money on. So that's really important to us. Is, yes, you're paying $12,000. Yes, you're paying, I believe, $260 for our cheapest flash hider, but you're protecting those investments. You're not buying an $800 PSA that you lose money on the second you buy it. You're not buying even a IR unit that loses its value. You're buying something that has a custom serial number by a company that cares, and this all comes back to our mission. Um, we want to bring this type of care and craftsmanship alive, and at the end of the day, we're not making it for everyone. And if you don't feel that Murdoch and Co fits your beliefs, or you can't afford our products, we can get into how you can be part of the community, which we're very welcoming to everyone. We're not gate guarding, but at the end of the day, there's a market for mass consumption and products that will liquidate their value. And Murdoch and Co doesn't make that. We make investments and collectors' items for our customers.
No, and that's something I kind of wanted to quickly touch on in regards to like, okay, why am I pushing someone like yourself in front of my audience who I know, like me included, I don't have 12K to put on a
Hmm.
rifle, but I think there's something bigger here, and we talk about consumerism a fair bit on this show. Buy a new gun, make me shoot more better, and all of that kind of like consumer like min max, with your wallet kind
Hmm.
of chasing that the industry puts on the average shooter.
Hmm.
And I think something has kind of been lost with this. Insert credit card details, receive more capability. Like there is something uh, that has been lost outside of that, and it's appreciation for craftsmanship and skill. And obviously I'm not telling people to go out and buy a EM85 to be your go-to fighting rifle if
Hmm.
you're like a prepared citizen rifleman. Like, no, obviously not. I'm not trying to put Evan here in front of our listeners so people pick up a rifle, and if you don't have one of these, like, you won't make it, man. No,
Well, that's not what it is, exactly.
no,
Yeah.
it's a completely different prospect, and so I hope in people listening to this, there's both the story of someone who saw something that didn't exist and decided to make it a thing, and also kind of understand like what does manufacturing for an item like this take what especially using original parts that have a pilfered from the factory and made their way to the US, like just interesting little details like that you can buy the nicest, Benelli M4 or Noveski or what may have you, and it won't have those little characterful details. Like there'll be great guns, but there's not that same one of a kind thing to them. So just something for people to consider when as you're listening to this. Like this is not a 2 hour long ad. This is I hope like one, a story of Murdoch and Co told for people to listen to, and two, a story on going from zero to an item that you could not have prior to someone saying nope, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, thank you, very much humbled by, everything we spoke about here today. Um, Very, very excited for the future. Um, and that's exactly it. The EM85, it's not a duty gun. Um, it's
It
if
could
you
be
put
by the
it,
sound
oh, sorry.
It could be by the sounds of it, but
Well, it
obviously
could. Well, and that's it. And
if you're in the mainland
right,
US, obviously
right.
ARs, but
Right, and we encourage our customers to run their guns. It's why we've designed it as such. Um, but it is so much more than that, and it's got a story to tell. And again, you join that club of collectors and enthusiasts, um, that you don't find anywhere else. And Murdoch and Co. Again, we don't gate guard. Um, that's not at all part of our mission. To move into the community support and future of the company. Whether you own one of these or not, or can afford one or not, we urge you, send us a message, come to us. We've had a phenomenal amount of people come out of the woodwork saying, "How can I help and support Murdoch and Co. and their mission?" Our mission is again to bring that European heritage, the story of British weapons, everything from the longbow to the L85 into the public eye, and have the stories told. We have some very exciting things coming in the future, and it all helps to tell that story in a refreshing way. That I don't think many companies out there are doing. Because the gun might be kind of what brings everyone together, and it helps tell the story, but it's not the whole story.
so kind of moving to more of our closing,
Hmm.
what does the future look like for Murdoch and Co? So obviously, we've got this limited edition run. We've got smaller products like the Flash Hider. Um,
Hmm.
how else can people be involved with Murdoch and Co if they don't want to buy a full-fledged limited edition rifle? And what does the future look like after this release?
Yeah, so the mission here at Murdoch and Co. goes beyond, as you said, that rifle. It's really about building a community, and somewhere people can go, quite frankly, without crossing the Atlantic Ocean to experience British firearms and weapon design and heritage. So everything from, we're purchasing an MOD Land Rover to drive an MOD Land Rover to the range to shoot some SA80s. We're in talks to get a showroom where we're going to showcase a number of our reference collection, which is all original parts, so people can see and experience those. You can
That's
see the
awesome.
entire EM85 collection, so that's going to be the EM80, the I'll say it in the L nomenclature for ease of visualization. The L85 A1, the A2, the A3, the LSW, the L22 carbine, and the underslung grenade launcher variant. Those are all going to be displayed in our showroom. Appointment obviously needed, but we're in talks to set that up here in the coming months. And we want it to be the only place in the country you can go to. You walk in and you don't feel like you're in America anymore. Um, and you can again see everything from a longbow to a musket to a Bren gun to a Sten gun to the SA80 series, and know that it was done with such precision and care that, if we invite people in the MOD, we have my friend jokes. He says, "You're going to get a call from the MOD, and you're going to be the reason some private in the British military has to check their serial numbers in their armory."
Good.
um, so
That's always
that's the future of Murdoch and Co. Where when you're buying our products, you're supporting really the birth and the beginning of that, which is really special, and you're becoming part of that community. So all I urge is don't be discouraged if you can't afford one of those rifles. Come and support us, and we want to invite you to experience them. Um, so that's what I'd recommend. Visit us on Instagram, share our work, ask questions, reach out to us. We want to talk to you all and show you what it is we're doing that's special. Um, and yeah, I would say, you know it's a fun time to be part of something new, I would say, and refreshing. We're not making another red dot. We're not making another AR-15. We're very much doing everything very differently, and Murdoch and Co. is actively and consciously hoping to set a new standard for these sort of projects in the industry and bring them back to life, because I think a lot of people have given up on them, quite frankly.
Yeah, everyone is so risk averse in today's market. Like, there's no one really taking major chances anymore. And with that, like, you do see that stifle of innovation. Like, there's things aren't as fun anymore, and that
Hmm.
sucks. So
Yeah,
I love
no,
to
and they
see.
should be.
Yeah, I love seeing people take a chance. Putting their money and the time where their passion is, and making things happen. It's the only way we get interesting developments. So, massive props to you for undertaking this. I love to see it. I'm super excited to potentially get my hands on an EM85 and get behind one to
Hmm.
shoot. So we should we'll be looking at doing some kind of potential video content in the near
Absolutely.
future, and that'll be
Yeah.
badass.
No, absolutely. And in terms of starting this company, what I would say is to bring it back to the beginning of our conversation. I run this company, like I manage the aircraft that I fly, and as a pilot, you use the word risk. Pilots don't like the word risk, but we open risk management. So all I've done is I've just managed this company with whatever risk might be. We've taken every step and corner and looked at everything to ensure that what we're doing won't fail. And if there is any sort of risk, whatever that might be, we've taken all the pre-steps and cautions to avoid them best we can. And that's how we fly. When you get on the airlines, the weather could be bad. You might need to carry less fuel because you're heavy, but you go because you have a list of procedures and you're well trained, and you manage that risk, and it can be done safely. So that we're just taking that. I take that philosophy and I apply it to this project that we're doing. So I don't feel there's any risk in it at all, quite frankly. So it makes it a lot more enjoyable. You know.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You see a lot of people like who maybe should be in the industry, maybe shouldn't, like using their last penny and dime and like risking it all for
Yeah.
like,
No.
the latest AR-15 doodad, and you're like, "Oh, brother,
Hmm.
I'm so sorry that you thought this was like the thing that would
Hmm.
make you a millionaire." Like, your poor ex-wife.
Yeah. Well, and that's important because a lot of people, actually, clients, when they purchase rifles from us, and I talk to them. I'm very lucky enough, and it's important that I have a relationship with all of our clients. And I tell them what my full time career is. That they're always relieved because, well,
Oh, thank God.
because what it means is I don't need to rush. Like, me eating or paying my mortgage doesn't, if there's something we need to fix with these rifles, we can just fix them. We can
Yeah.
take our time. There's no rush. There's no, I took out a loan and now I gotta, you know, rush these to market, and whatever happens, happens. I'll take their money. There's none of that with Murdoch and Co., which is really relieving. It's really freeing, and it allows us to do great, passionate work.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
So I guess kind of in closing, you mentioned we talked about spare parts for the EM85.
Hmm.
So anything else to kind of add on that front in terms of, like, will people be able to straight just order them online? Do they have to reach out and contact you guys and be a previous owner? Like, what's that look like?
That's a great question. So right now, spare parts are only reserved for those who own EM85s. We do a
Gotcha.
pre-order contract. That serial is designated to that individual. If they wish to transfer it, you have to contact us in order to do that. Not to transfer the firearm in a legal sense, but it's more we need to keep a record of that because that is the only way you're going to get spare parts. The reason for that is we do not want someone buying. If we listed bolts, fire control groups, and barrels on our website, somebody is going to try to put one in an airsoft gun, um, which might sound silly to your listeners, but
No, I know exactly what you mean. Like,
yeah,
you're gonna get one of these like rubbish parts kits that's like, oh well, I can make this for X amount cheaper and just shove this into an airsoft gun.
that exactly. So, and trust me, these are not the same. you 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 cannot do that. So, we want to mitigate that issue. Again, going back to risk management. So, right now, the parts are only available for those who purchase rifles. With that said, they can order as many as they want um, to keep on hand. So,
Gotcha.
mhm.
So obviously we have the limited edition or limited run of this rifle. What people are going to be asking once those are all gone and people see these things popping up in the world, and they want to get their hands on one of these from Murdoch and Co. Will there be a production version of this?
Yeah. So this is something that very commonly fills our inbox, and that we're asked all the time. Will there be a production rifle? And the short answer is yes.
Hey,
We are planning a production gun. Your opportunity to experience this rifle will be available for those who wish to purchase it. With that said, we know we have the challenge of how do you keep the investment value of the EM85 compared to our production rifle, um, which we haven't got any official names for it, but it'll probably be an EM85 designation with either an A3 or an A2. Sorry, an A3 or an A4. So let's call it the A4. So what are the differences going to be? So it's going to be the same internal and sheet metal stamped experience. It'll have no original parts, which is really where the collector's value is differentiated. It'll probably be Cerakoted a different color. It'll have modernized Picatinny rails and M-LOK forend. Essentially, it's going to be an SA80 A3. Again, that could change at time of recording, but as of now, that's what we're planning. Will be the production gun.
gotcha.
So.
And then in terms of price point, is that something you can get into on the production gun at this stage?
Yeah, so the price point, our goal with the M85 and this entire company is we want to get these rifles into the hands of people who care about them. As we spoke before earlier today, the cost of sheet metal stamping is tremendous, and you cannot do a sheet metal stamped gun cheaply. You can't do it well. You can't do it cheaply well.
Yeah,
Um, so the price point we're aiming for is a high-end PVS 14 full night vision setup. So, your full top of the line PVS 14 with a ballistic helmet and mount. Around about that, say $5,000 to $6,000 range is where we're aiming.
gotcha.
And we wanted that price to reflect what you're getting. Obviously, we can make more of these, so we can work on the price. But ultimately, these can't be $3,000 guns. They simply can't be. I mean, if you attempted to it, we've ran the numbers many different ways, and unless you're making 500,000 of them, they just can't. Even the SA80, when HK did the conversion, the total price for the UK government to obtain an SA80 in the 90s was £3,000 per unit.
Mm,
Um, so for us to ask for six now, it's really almost comparable, quite frankly, to when you add inflation or those other factors. So
Yeah, I was I was just doing the conversion on sterling to US dollar, but of course, yeah, the 90s to 2025, that is quite a considerable inflationary jump. But no, that's exciting stuff. So knowing someday you guys, I know you guys are very busy with the release right now, but is there like an ideal timeline on when production will start to be like the next project that you guys focus on? Or is that kind of like just in the wings?
no, so we're simultaneously developing that. So we're working on the models for the handguards, the Picatinny rail. We're working on all the other different aspects, changing tooling for production. These things take a year and a half to 2 years. So our starting now would put us maybe full time of 26. To at least show the public the production rifle.
Yeah,
Um, Again, these things take time. There's no quick way to do it well. And honestly, we want to enjoy releasing the EM85. We've been invited to SHOT Show, which we're still deciding if we're going to go. But if we do, we hope to have an A1, an A2, a carbine, maybe an LSW, maybe some production rifle parts. So yeah, I mean, as exciting as it is, what got us here in the position that we are is just some patience and having fun at the end of the day. So yeah, we want to bring you all a product that you're not only going to enjoy, but you'll be able to appreciate for generations to come.
gotcha. Badass. One quick follow-up
Hmm.
question to that one. You mentioned SHOT Show, but do you guys have any like on the books debut events for this thing, or is that kind of to
Ooh.
be seen?
We don't. We did some filming today, and we're gonna do more filming tomorrow as of time of recording. um we're going to do a little bit more videos on our YouTube, and we're going to delve deep into you know like the recoil rod bolt assembly, the upper receiver, the lower receiver, the barrel and gas assembly, because we've posted pictures on our Instagram, but I think some short videos just explaining those components in detail, how they work, how they might be differ. We'll go into that, but in terms of debut, nothing planned. I think we'll almost just post a picture on Instagram is kind of how
Yeah,
it will
yeah.
go.
No, for
So
sure.
yeah, yeah, and then at that point, just visit gun shows and shooting competitions and trade shows, and just again allow the public to enjoy these rifles.
Yeah, fair play, man. Excited to see that come to fruition.
Very excited. Yeah, it's very very happy with where it is and where it's going. So
Love to hear that. So yeah, something to look out for, folks. If this whole project has intrigued you, but the price point is prohibitive, like maybe still check out Murdoch and Co and give them a follow.
absolutely.
Um, all right. We kind of touched on this, but I guess again, how can someone be a part of Murdoch and Co and its story if they can't buy an EM85, or perhaps they can't buy the production run
Mhm.
rifle yet? What else can they do?
Uh, Reach out and share whatever content and stories. Again, we invite once we get our showroom finalized, we invite your clients to come out. Um, but share the story of the rifle. Become educated in the SA80 story. Um, if you're passionate about what we're doing, delve into other parts of British engineering, because it's going to help you understand Murdoch and Co further. Um, yeah, and I would say, yeah, I mean, obviously, support us in whatever way you can, however you see fit. But we are actively share what we're doing with people who you think might enjoy it also. And that's because we are actively trying to build a community. We don't want this to become a gate guarded, price prohibitive, because sadly, the price does come with quality, and that's something that we cannot avoid. Um, but it doesn't mean that we don't want you here. And actually, a nice way I'd like to finish off would be, um, we recently finished the manual for the M85, and I added a chapter at the back, which answers this question perfectly. and a nice way to close. And I'll simply read that. About a paragraph in, it says, and I very much stand by this. We do not believe in gateguarding our products here at Murdoch and Co. And although our work comes at an unavoidable premium price, we assure the wider community that when you support our work here at Murdoch and Co., they are supporting a company and community that believes in sharing and education. We welcome anyone who is curious to learn about British arms and experience the SA80 story via the EM85 to reach out. With that, we kindly ask our community members and small number of EM85 owners to consider sharing these amazing rifles and their story, be it through social media or range days with friends. We have no doubt these rifles will turn eyes at ranges across the country and the world, so we humbly ask that you welcome those who are curious members about these firearms and the SA80 story, so that you can join our community to experience these rifles in whichever way you see fit. We never want anyone in the community to feel unwelcomed when they see a Murdoch & Co. product or an EM85, but rather be reassured and welcomed as a part of our story.
Awesome.
So I think that really sums it up for us.
Yeah. Oh, I dig it. That's it's really what firearms is all about. Like it's not something to hoard and keep from others, but it's something something we pass to others, and share in capability, education, history. It's all part of the hobby, and I think that's that's like a really nice thing to marry into something that is at face value like extremely premium, but ultimately it comes back down to the same love that we all had, whether it was like a a cheap Ruger 1022,
Exactly.
a Daisy
Yeah.
BB gun,
Yep.
your basic cadet rifle, what may have you, whatever got you into it. It all comes back to that. So no,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. Well,
absolutely.
In closing, you got any last things for the listeners that they should know, to share, what may have you?
You can follow us at Murdoch and Co. At Murdoch and Co. on Instagram. Our website, obviously, Murdoch and Co. We have a YouTube channel. Not much on there yet. We've been very busy perfecting everything, but look out for content on all those platforms. And that's the best way to reach out to us. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or one of the team members. And ultimately, thank you for your time here tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, I'm really glad we got to talk about this. I've been curious. I've been wanting to pick and prod at this, so thank you for the time.
No, absolutely, and we're very excited to go out, and I really look forward to filming these rifles with you very shortly.
Oh
It'll
yeah,
be
we'll
a lot of fun.
have a good time out in Appalachia.
Buy
So.
some DPM.
Oh, and sure, already got it.
Perfect.
I'm a good Brit. All right.
Perfect.
Last thing before we head out of here is the question that we are. It's the only gotcha on the show, and we ask it of every single guest. So
Oh
before we
God.
get out of here, we always ask our guests for dad advice to the listeners, like as if they are your loving children gazing into your eyes, looking for wisdom. What would you tell the listeners? And it can be anything you like. Doesn't have to relate to anything we were just talking about. It can serious, funny, whatever you like.
From a guy that kind of came from nothing. I fly beautiful multi-million-dollar jets, and I have the privilege to bring the EM85 to you all. I would say, don't ever quit, and make calculated risks, and never be afraid to ask for help when you don't know something. So if you realize that you don't know everything, go to the smartest person in that subject for advice. Make the calculated risk, and once you make it, don't quit. You will succeed at what it is you want to do.
I love it. Success is inevitable if you headbutt it the right way.
Yeah, well, that too.
Love it. All right, well, Evan, thank you so much for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see more on the EM85 and from Murdoch and Co. So yeah, exciting times.
Perfect. Cheers. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you guys for listening, and until next time, okay, bye.